All right, everyone. Sorry for the little delay. As you can imagine, sometimes the connections from technology to technology takes a little bit to fire up, especially probably on a Monday. I'm Kathy Scabetta from Adobe. Thank you so much all for attending. We've got a great lineup of sessions throughout November, 10 in total. You can see them on the Adobe page at the Photo Plus Plus site. But I have the great pleasure of introducing our very first speaker, Rob Sylvan. Rob is an absolute expert on Lightroom. In fact, he's the guy that sometimes Adobe people will go to when they have questions about Lightroom. So he's the man, and he's going to talk to you today about how to use Lightroom Classic, which is everyone's favorite desktop version of Lightroom, along with Lightroom on your mobile device. So, taking advantage of that camera that's always with you, you shoot with it. Then how do you get it to Lightroom Classic, and how do they both work together? We're going to go about an hour. I will be feeding Rob questions periodically through this session and certainly at the end. So if you have questions, throw them into the Q&A area where you're watching this session, and we will try to get them all answered. So thank you for being here. Time for me to turn it over to Rob.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kathy. Thanks to Photo Plus, Adobe. I'm so excited to be here. I wish I was in New York. I love Photo Plus. I'm so glad that this is happening virtually, though. And thanks to everyone who's tuning in who maybe couldn't make it to New York. So I'm going to share my screen so we can get going in here. And I want to start off here in Lightroom Classic. And I just want to clarify so we know what programs we're talking about as I move through this session. And so recently, Adobe updated the icons that we see on our taskbar and our dock. And so we're in Lightroom Classic, and this screen, we see the icon for Lightroom Classic, and we see the icon for Lightroom. We're going to use both of those. And now, before we had a program called Lightroom Classic, it was just called Lightroom. And at the time, there was another mobile app that was called Lightroom Mobile. And the Lightroom Mobile was designed to really be an extension of that Lightroom catalog. Well, time has gone on, and because these mobile devices seem to be pretty popular, Adobe has expanded that what was this little Lightroom mobile app into a whole ecosystem of apps. And so now we have a version of Lightroom Classic that has always been around for both Windows and Mac. And now we have this whole ecosystem family of apps that exist on all other platforms: Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, and even on a Chromebook. Now, it's possible to use either one of these completely separately. You don't have to use them together at all. You could be a happy Lightroom Classic only user and go through your life just fine that way. Or you could be someone who is really much more maybe mobile based and has multiple devices and just wants to live kind of in the Lightroom ecosystem with everything stored in the cloud. That's fine too. You could do either one of those. What we're going to do today is we're going to roll up our sleeves and get a little messy, and we're going to use the two together. Now, why would you use the two together? Well, for me, it's what I've been doing since before we had this program called Lightroom Classic. I love using the two together because Lightroom Classic for me is the home base for all my photography. I have in front of me here, I have a couple external hard drives. I have a Drobo. That's where my photos live. That's the primary storage location. I like to be able to reach out and touch it, and I like to know what that is. Now, I also use cloud backup, all right? And I also love having the ability to access and find photos when I'm out in the world on my phone, on my tablet. I also have a Wacom Mobile Studio Pro, which it's a Windows 10 tablet, and I have the Lightroom cloud app on that as well. And that just gives me the ability to pretty much have whatever photos I want to have access to on whatever device I want, at the same time have everything stored locally. So how do we make that work? That's the big question. Now, if you are a Lightroom Classic person already, you probably have the Creative Cloud Photography plan. So I just want to talk about kind of the bigger picture here for how you might get into using these. And within the Creative Cloud, there's a number of different subscription models, but in the photography plan space, we have a plan that's been around for a long time, which was using Lightroom Classic and Photoshop together, right? And it's $9.99 a month. And when you have that plan, this plan that's been around, geez, I think since like 2005 or six, pretty much unchanged, except for adding new features. Price has been the same, but they've added a lot of new features. So with that photography plan at $9.99 a month, you have Lightroom Classic, you have Photoshop, latest version. As updates come out, you've got them. You can also install Photoshop on your iPad. That's pretty new in this last year. You have access to all the Spark apps. You get a free portfolio. And then because this is really built around this Lightroom Classic local storage, it only comes with 20 gigabytes of cloud storage. And you might be thinking, that's not a whole lot of storage. I probably have memory cards that are much larger than that from 10 years ago. That's fine. As we get into this, I'm gonna tell you and show you how you can use the Lightroom on mobile without taking up any of that 20 gigabytes of space at all, if you so desire. Now, there's also a Lightroom only plan, all right? And this is the Lightroom ecosystem only. Doesn't involve Lightroom Classic. And so as we look down here, it has the Lightroom cloud-based app, but no Lightroom Classic, no Photoshop on iPad. And so this is for folks who just want to live in the Lightroom only world, don't use those other apps. That's totally fine. The big difference here, aside from not having those apps, is you get a terabyte of cloud storage. It's quite a lot. And so you can put, your entire library up in the cloud. And if you need more space, you can add on additional terabytes of storage for additional cost. Now, the plan that I like to use the most is actually a hybrid of these two, which is the photography plan that includes all the apps, plus it includes 1 terabyte of storage. Why? Well, that gives you the ability to go off on a shoot, import your photos using, now I'm on an iPhone most of the time. This is just the adapter for an SD card. And I can plug this right into my iPhone, and I can import photos from my Nikon D850, wherever I am, right into my phone, have those photos upload to the cloud, have them access on all my devices, and eventually anything that gets imported into a Lightroom cloud app, full resolution photo goes up to the cloud, and that full resolution photo will then download right to Lightroom Classic and go right where I want it to go, back home in my home base. It really creates a pretty powerful workflow that just gives you all the possible options of all of these apps. So what I'm going to show you, you can definitely do with just this plan. If you want to take it up a notch with additional cloud storage, you could go to that plan. You certainly can use this one, but we're going to be looking at Lightroom Classic, which is not involved in that Lightroom only plan. So here I am in Lightroom Classic. What do I need to do to connect my Lightroom Classic catalog to the Lightroom cloud? So in a recent update, Adobe added in this little cloud icon. It used to be kind of hidden up here under the identity plate, moved out all the way over to here. And if I click on this little cloud, we have this little window that shows how much storage space I have and in the cloud. And so I have that terabyte. Now, there's an FAQ here. I highly recommend you check that out. Now, I'm going to share with you all a PDF, a link to a PDF that I put together a bunch of resources of articles I've written, also a couple of Adobe help docs to help you dive into some of the details. I'm not going to have time to cover every single possible thing. So I'm going to show you that here in a little bit, but just know that one of those links is actually this FAQ right inside of here. And this is telling me that this catalog is not synced. So if I had never synced a catalog, I could come into this little, click on that cloud, come in here and click on Start Syncing. Now, it's telling me sync this catalog instead. Well, that's because my main catalog is already synced. You can only have one Lightroom Classic catalog synced to the cloud at a time. And that's an important consideration to make. And I highly recommend to most Lightroom Classic users just to have one catalog, at least one main catalog. You might be some reasons to make some smaller ones for different purposes, but have one kind of main home-based catalog. And so for me, that's the one that is currently synced to the cloud. Now I could switch it, but I don't want to do that, and that will create a bit of a hassle. So I just want to show you that if you've never synced a catalog, that's all you have to do to kind of get the ball rolling. Now I'm going to cancel out of this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the catalog that I actually do have synced to the cloud, so I can show you how that process works. So once you click on that Start Sync, that basically makes the connection, And now you have the ability to start syncing collections here in Lightroom Classic to the cloud. So now I'm in my main Lightroom Classic catalog. And if we look up here at that little cloud icon, it has a green check mark. If I click on it, it's telling me I am synced. So this catalog is already synced to the cloud. And I've got only 153 gigabytes of my 1 terabyte used currently. If I needed to pause syncing for any reason, I could pause that sync right here. And what I want to show you is this particular preference. So you can get to this via the Lightroom Classic Preferences Lightroom Sync. If you're on a Mac, if you're on Windows, it would be under the Edit menu, or you could just click on the cloud here and click on this little gear, and that opens it up as well. Now, why am I showing you this? Well, the main reason is this location section. This location section is where you can configure Lightroom Classic so that any full res photo that gets imported into the cloud to any of the Lightroom Cloud apps, whether it's on my phone, my iPad, my Wacom Mobile Studio Pro, whatever device I use to import those photos, they get uploaded to the cloud. Any full res photo automatically downloads right into my Lightroom Classic catalog. I don't have to do a thing about it. And so I set this up by checking this box and then choosing the location where I want it to go. Now, for me, I just use my pictures folder. Why? Because it's always available. Now, I just said I have external hard drives, and that's true, but they may or may not always be connected. So I want to have this location be a location that is always available for new photos to download automatically. And you can also choose from a date-based type of structure to create as part of that process. So once you've started sync, you're going to want to configure this location. And that way, any new photos come in, they're going to land there. So if I go to my folders panel, and so we could see that I have, this is on my local drive. This is actually in my pictures folder. I have a parent folder for the year, and then I have a bunch of date-based folders, but also with some additional information that helps me understand what's inside any one of those folders. Dates are nice, but by themselves, not enough. Dates plus information, that's really, really helpful to me. And so all of these folders were either imports from a DSLR or photos that had downloaded from the cloud because they were photos that I took on my phone. Now, I went out and walked my dogs, who are hanging out here right now quietly behind me, before I did this session, and I took some pictures while I was out there with my phone. So let me switch over to my phone for a sec. All right, and so here is many of the Adobe apps, although not all of them. And I'm going to go into the Lightroom app. And so this is the Lightroom mobile app, or Lightroom on mobile app. And we can see that I have 11,000, almost 12,000 photos that are synced between my Lightroom Classic catalog and the Lightroom Cloud. Now, the cloud up here, we can see is paused. There's a little cloud icon up at the top. Now, this little red dot here, that's my finger. I had paused syncing just so that you could see the syncing happen for these photos. So I went out with my dogs and I took some photographs with one of the many different camera apps that are available out there. All right, I have a whole bunch of them. I love to use them. And most of those apps, once you take a picture with them, are going to download that picture onto your camera roll. Now, this is all I have on my camera roll. I have some cute pictures of my dog and my niece, because she likes to look at them when she grabs my phone and she gets to go get her hands on this. So I leave those on there just for her. There are some 4 new photos of my dogs from our walk today. I only keep very few things on my own camera roll because everything for me is accessible through Lightroom. That means I don't have to waste storage space on my device with every photo I've ever taken with my phone, because they're just stored in the cloud for me and they're accessible on any device that I have because of Lightroom. So these 4 photos are new. I snapped them with the Focus app, which is kind of cool for creating a depth map. And those photos automatically imported here into this particular album. So here in the Lightroom cloud world, what were collections in Lightroom Classic, they're referred to as albums here in the cloud. So in this particular album, there's almost 5,000 images in it. This to me is like my camera roll. This is like the generic place I toss in pictures, or if I use the app camera icon, that little blue and white camera icon down at the bottom there, this is where I put those photographs. Now, these 4 automatically imported into this album without me having to do anything else except to set it up. So here inside the Lightroom app, this 3-dot menu, if I tap on that, there's an option here to auto add from camera roll, all right? And that's turned on. That means that any photo that hits my camera roll automatically comes into Lightroom. I don't have to do anything else about it. And that makes this process really simple for me. I can use any camera app I like on my phone, and I know they're automatically going to come into the Lightroom app automatically. And then they'll automatically upload to the cloud. So let me resume syncing again. And so now any changes that I made inside the app, any full res photos that were imported into this app, get uploaded to the cloud and reside there. That makes them available across the entire Lightroom ecosystem. Now, once those full resolution photos land in the cloud, they'll start to download automatically into Lightroom Classic. Now, the other app that I want to show you that I have installed here is the Lightroom app for Mac. In this case, it's on my Mac, but this is the desktop version of the cloud app. And you can see it looks a lot like Lightroom on my phone, right? And so those photos are uploaded to the cloud, and now they're starting to show here on my desktop in this Lightroom app as they're kind of landing, right? At the same time, if I come over to Lightroom Classic and I look in my folders panel, here's a folder based on today's date that just appeared, wasn't there before. And if I click on that, the photos are starting to download and land in the location that I programmed into the preferences in Lightroom Classic. And then this is where all the photos from my walk with my dogs are going to land. All right. That is the beginning of this workflow. It makes things so simple for me to have this extension of my mobile phone to my laptop and vice versa. So while this is happening here, you can see the rest of those coming in. What if I wanted to use this combination of apps without impacting that 20 gigabytes of cloud storage? I mentioned that was possible. So because of those photos I took with my mobile phone, they imported the full res into the Lightroom app. The full resolution photos for these are stored in the cloud. That is true. And that is taking up some of that 20 gigabytes of storage. So what if I wanted to remove that from the cloud so that those were no longer taking up space in the cloud, but at the same time I wanted to put them back so that I could show everybody my cute dogs? All right, how can I make all of that happen? So I mentioned that I'm going to share a PDF, so let me put that up. So if you want to, this is the link to that, and you could just screen capture that. It's just on my website, lightroomers.com/Adobe, Lightroom Classic, and Lightroom.pdf. And in that PDF I have right here are pages of links to resources to help you dial in on all of these things that I just talked about, and much more, if you want to give this a try. Right, every week I write a new blog post on Lightroom Killer Tips, and many of the things I write about is this combination of things. And so I tried to put all that together as a simple resource for you all to follow along with. Now, while I'm here looking at my browser, I want to point out one other location where the Lightroom ecosystem can be accessed from your desktop computer. If you go to lightroom.adobe.com and log in with your Adobe ID and password, you can access and view, possibly even edit and organize your photos right from your web browser, right? And so this is that contents of what I saw on my phone, what I saw in the Lightroom app for Mac or Windows. It's all right there in this web browser. That means I could just go and walk into any one of my neighbors' homes without any of my devices, politely ask them if I can use their computer, go to lightroom.adobe.com, and I could access all the stuff I have in the cloud from any computer at all, which is pretty cool. I could even import photos through the web browser and they'll appear in all my apps. It's pretty powerful. All right, so as these photos are sitting here in my Lightroom Classic catalog, and I know that they're also in the cloud, how can I tell that here? So there's an important panel called the catalog panel in Lightroom Classic, and it's called all synced photographs. And this gives a kind of running tally of all of the photographs, emphasis on photographs, that are synced to the cloud. And what I can use this for is a way to remove photos from being synced, but still keep them in my catalog, still not deleting the photos from my hard drive or anything, but just removing them from being synced. And by removing them from being synced here in Lightroom Classic, it removes them from the cloud so that they're not taking up storage anymore. So if I wanted to reclaim that cloud storage, so I use up my 20 gigs, I would want to select these new photos. It's a mixture of JPEGs and DNG files that are sitting in the cloud. I know they've downloaded because I can see them here in the folders panel. If I see them in the folders panel, that means they're here locally on my drive. And so by selecting them here in all synced photographs, if I press the delete key, Lightroom Classic is going to tell me these 7 photos will be removed from all synced collections and from Lightroom Photos on Creative Cloud, but will not be deleted from the desktop catalog, meaning the Lightroom Classic catalog. And so if I go ahead and click OK, those photos will be removed from being synced, but still exist on my hard drive, right? They're still right there. And if I look over now at my Lightroom app for Mac here on my computer, or if I look over at my phone, those photos have been removed, right? They're no longer accessible or available in the cloud. So I've effectively downloaded them to my computer without having to do anything, which is awesome. I remove them from the cloud so they're no longer taking up any of that storage, which is awesome. But what if I want to put them back, all right? What if I really want to make sure that everybody could see this amazing picture of my 2 dogs when I'm just walking around with my phone, all right? So I'm going to select all those again, and I'm going to come down to the collections panel. Now, here in Lightroom Classic, the collections panel is really the main place where you're going to be able to put photos into collections that will then be synced to the Lightroom cloud if you so choose. Now, just turning on the sync by clicking that, oops, sorry about that, by clicking that start button here, doesn't just automatically sync your whole catalog or nothing like that. You are totally in control. And that's really cool about this process. With the Lightroom ecosystem, everything you put into any Lightroom app, it's all in the cloud. With Lightroom Classic, you have control over what photos you want in the cloud and what photos you want to keep locally. I like that control. All right, so I want to put these photos back into the cloud. So I want to make a new collection, and I'm going to sync that collection as part of this. Now, kind of from doing this and trying to manage this and trying to keep it simple, one thing that I've chosen to do, this isn't required to do, but within Lightroom Classic, the way you organize things is using a collection set as the kind of parent or the structure for how you want to organize your collection. So collection sets can hold other collection sets. They can hold smart collections, which are basically saved searches. They just follow some rules and they gather up photos based on those rules. And then there are regular collections which you manually add photos to. Now, the only thing of all these that can sync to the Lightroom cloud are these regular collections. Now, I want to create a new collection. And so I created a collection set to help me understand what collections are synced to the cloud and what aren't. So I can just look at this panel and get a sense of that. And so I cleverly came up with the idea of just using the word synced in the name of the collection set. So I have a collection set called Synced Family, which is basically just family and friends photos. This one synced from mobile. There's that Rob iPhone camera roll generic collection that I have. There's a couple of apps, Adobe apps, Photoshop Fix and Mix, that if you send while you're on mobile to those apps, they automatically get added here. So that's why that lives in there. Then I have some personal projects and I have some work. And so that just is very broadly defined for me, a structure for how I want to manage those photos. If I look over here in the Lightroom app for my Mac, we see the same kind of structure. Now, I don't need to use the word sync here because by virtue of them being in the cloud, they're synced. So it would be kind of redundant. But to keep the structure between the two, between Lightroom Classic and Lightroom Cloud, similar is a manual process, right? The collections will automatically sync over and appear, but the structure you have to create in both. So we can see here that I have under this from Lightroom collection set, this is one that gets created automatically when you sync to the Lightroom Cloud. And any collections or albums that you create in one of the Lightroom Cloud apps, they automatically will appear here. So when you're first getting started, I want you to look for that from Lightroom smart collection set, and any collections or albums that you create in that app are going to appear right here. So that warm fall preset that's right here, this is an album that I created here in the Lightroom ecosystem of apps, and it's synced across all my Lightroom apps, and it's synced over here to Lightroom Classic too, but this is where it gets dumped. And so if I want to put it into my structure, this is something I just put under my personal projects. I was just messing around with some fall pictures, and I'll just add it into my synced personal projects collection set and keep it organized. I think keeping organized is something you want to do, otherwise you end up going crazy. And so here I would do the same. I would just grab that that album and drag it up my personal projects. Here, these are called folders. Don't look at me, I didn't name them that, but that's what they're called. And these folders act like collection sets in Lightroom Classic. And so I try to keep this under control. Now, you might think, well, geez, I never thought of that. I never kept it under control. Mine's kind of a mess. Let me just show you. Here's another trick. Up here, now let me, I don't have that on right now, my Cursor Pro. So I can zoom in here. I can zoom in this way. All right, so what I wanna do is show you this little thing at the top of the filters panel. I'm zooming in here because it's really small. It's actually ironically a magnifying glass because you probably need one to see it. But if I click on that little guy, there's an option to filter this entire panel to show only collections that are synced. So if I click on that, now my collections panel is filtered to show only collections that are synced. And that can be really useful for you kind of wrapping your arms around whatever situation you have created for yourself. And I'm going to just turn that off by clicking on all. So I have those pictures of my pups, and I want to add them into a collection. Where do I want to put them? Well, I'll put them under my synced family. I'll put them under me. And I'm going to right click on this collection set. I'm going to create a collection, and I'll call this Dog Walk. And it's going to go right inside my Sylvan's collection set. I click create. So I don't need a whole collection set for it. I'll just create a regular collection. Keep it simple. Collection sets are great for structure, not really needed here. So have my new collection going inside my Sylvan's collection set. And there is an option here to sync with Lightroom. I'm going to leave that unchecked for now so I can show you the other way to do it. But you could also do it right from here and have that process go a lot quicker. I'm going to click create. All right, so now I have a collection. And if I zoom in here real close, we could see that the box to the left of the name of this collection is empty, right? Whereas these other all have this little lightning bolt type of thing. So if I put my cursor over that, we see that as soon as I put my cursor over it, that appears. If I click on it, I've just enabled that collection to sync with the Lightroom Cloud. Now I had this one photo selected when I created it. I had the box checked to include selected photo. Didn't need to do that because that's not a dog. So what can I do? Well, I'll just hit delete. And this is asking me, do you want me to remove this photo completely from being synced or just from this collection, basically? I'm going to leave it in all sync photographs because it does exist in others. So do you want sync photos to remain all sync photographs? Yes, I do. It's important to think about that because you might want to remove one photo from being from a certain collection, but you might want to leave it still in the cloud so that it can exist in other collections there. So now I have an empty collection. It is synced and it appeared up in the cloud along with that one photo. Now that one photo is already synced, so it didn't have to do anything. Now, what I want to do though is bring over all my new photos and have them be available in the cloud, but not take up any of my cloud storage. And how's that possible? The key is if you sync the photos from Lightroom Classic to the cloud, they take up 0 cloud storage because instead of uploading the full resolution photo, Lightroom Classic can only upload a smart preview. And a smart preview is kind of like a fancy DNG. It can contain all the important raw things that you would need for editing, like changing the profile or applying a lens profile correction. But they're reduced in pixel dimensions, and they get like a JPEG type of compression applied to them to reduce their file size. So think of them as smaller in pixel dimensions, smaller in file size. They get uploaded to the cloud as a lot faster, and they become the means for transferring and viewing photos on mobile without taking up any cloud storage, because smart previews don't count against your 20 gigabytes. So a Lightroom Classic, someone who has a Creative Cloud photography plan for $9.99 and 20 gigabytes of storage could be syncing all kinds of photos from Lightroom Classic to the cloud and not taking up that cloud storage. When would you take up cloud storage? When you use your phone like I did to take pictures of your dog or whatever you take pictures of, and you import them into a Lightroom Cloud app, then the full resolution photos go up into the cloud and they will take up your storage. But I just showed you how, and I've also included in that PDF, how you can manage that storage so that those photos can exist in both places and not take up storage. So I want to put those back in the cloud and not take up any cloud storage. So I'm going to come over here to my new collection that I just created, Dog Walk, and I'm just going to drag these on in and drop them right there. So now they're in my Dog Walk collection, and we see that the sync icon is doing its sync thing. And so now it's syncing these 7 photos. It's creating a smart preview and uploading the smart preview so that I can access these photos from any of my Lightroom devices. All right, so that photo that I removed, the flower photo originally, that got pulled out, that's great. And so now as these smart previews start appearing, they'll be added automatically into this, now that we're in Lightroom world, an album, and I'll be able to show them and edit them and do whatever else I want to do with them. So while that's doing its thing, I want to share with you what it looks like if you, maybe I'll show it on here. It's a little bit easier to see. The process of importing a photo or memory card while you're on mobile. So this is actually a screen recording I did because my phone is connected via cable so that I can plug in. Yes.
We've got some questions. I think now would be can we pause for a second and do some questions?
I told you I would just start yammering away. Yes, please. Thank you.
That's our Rob. No, you have so much to say. And there were some questions that were really germane to what you just talked about. And a couple of these questions you did brush upon, but I think they bear repeating.
Please do.
Okay. So Argan has a question, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Is it possible to not have Lightroom Mobile on the phone, not upload all the originals at all? This becomes a real issue if we're somewhere where there is very poor connection or data costs a lot, i.e. or e.g. traveling in Europe.
You can, as I showed in the beginning, you can pause syncing on the mobile device or on any of the Lightroom devices, not just mobile, so that it will not upload photos while syncing is paused. just pointing out, it's super windy here, and I just noticed my lights flash. So if I go dark, it's because we just lost power. So you can totally control when the syncing is happening, but in order for everything that I just showed you to work, syncing has to happen eventually. So you can absolutely hit the pause button on syncing, wait until syncing is a good time for you. You're in place with Wi-Fi or wherever makes sense for you. Then you can turn on the sync and resume that. So on my phone, what that looked like is, so if I tap on the cloud here, I can just tap on pause syncing. And now it will stop uploading to the cloud. It will also stop receiving information that I do on my Lightroom Classic or any of the Lightroom apps too. So when you pause syncing, you basically are kind of shutting down all communication between the Lightroom family of apps until you decide to resume syncing again. And then that process will continue. So hopefully that answered your question.
Awesome, thank you. Another question, Roy asked, so Lightroom is for the phone or mobile and Lightroom Classic is for the desktop. And that's not precisely accurate. So Rob, do you want to just do a quick walkthrough of?
Yeah, so that's basically it. I mean, so the one place where it often gets the most confusing. So here is the view of my phone. So this is my phone plugged in via cable shown through my Mac laptop here. And this is the Lightroom app, along with all the other Adobe apps that live on my iPhone. It looks the same on my Android phone, right? That's the Lightroom app on mobile. If I was on my iPad or if I was on an Android tablet, Lightroom lives in all those places, as well as on the Chromebook. In addition, and just talking about the Lightroom family of apps, there is also a Lightroom app for Mac and Windows. And this is for folks who don't use Lightroom Classic, are just using the Lightroom plan, and they want to have an app for accessing everything that's in the Lightroom cloud on their Mac or Windows computer. So that's the whole of the Lightroom ecosystem. In addition, that predates all of the Lightroom family of apps that we were just talking about there, there's Lightroom Classic. And Lightroom Classic is the version of Lightroom that came out way back in 2006 and has evolved with the modules and all on to where we are today. And so when we think of Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, we have to think of which kind of platforms are we on and which version of Lightroom then. And desktop, I always found to be not the best word because A, I'm on a laptop right now, so what does that even tell you? I like to use the names of the operating system, Windows and Mac. That tells you exactly what it's for. So Lightroom Classic, Windows and Mac only. The Lightroom family of apps, all of the platforms. Hope that answers your question.
Oh, that was actually a really concise way of explaining it. Thank you. And we had a couple of questions that were similar to that. So we're going to consider those answered. I have one more for this part, and then the rest of the questions we can tackle towards the end.
Sure.
Elise asked, are the images duplicated or kept entirely in Adobe Lightroom?
All right. So just looking at these pictures of my dogs here for sake of simplicity. When I first captured them, all right, I was on my phone and I imported them in. And so those photos at first landed on my camera roll. They were automatically imported into the Lightroom app. They uploaded to the cloud. And so the Lightroom family of apps, this version of Lightroom I'm looking at here, they look to the cloud as their source, as their truth, as the place where they go to get the full scoop on everything. At the same time, because I synced this Lightroom, the Lightroom apps to my Lightroom Classic catalog, anything full res in the cloud automatically downloads to Lightroom Classic. And so at this point, when this first downloaded, those photos existed both in the cloud and a copy downloaded to my local computer. Then I went up to the Lightroom all sync photographs here, and I removed those photos from being synced. That removed them from the cloud. Then they only existed here locally. They only existed on my laptop locally. Then I took those same photos and I added them to a new collection that I created. It could have been an existing collection. And then a smart preview got uploaded to the cloud. The full res photo at this point only lives locally. The only thing that's in the cloud is a smart preview of these photographs. And so if I see them now, this is the Lightroom app for Mac. There they are. They're in the smart previews have uploaded to the cloud. If I look on my phone, There they are, right? But in each of these cases, these photos are only Smart Preview. And how can we tell? So if I'm here in Lightroom for Mac here, and I'm going to click on this little I button down here. And if I zoom in on this little bottom corner under sync status, we see that synced from Lightroom Classic, Smart Preview only. So these photos that were full res at one point in the cloud are now only existing in the cloud as a Smart Preview. And as such, they don't take up any space in my cloud storage whatsoever. So I've created a
Uh-oh, remember when Rob said he might lose power? I fear he may have just lost power. Rob, can you shoot me a text on your phone? Okay, all. Rob just texted me that he lost power, so maybe we'll give it a second and see if he gets power back. We have some more questions that people have asked, but unfortunately, a lot of them I can't answer because they're super technical and they are absolutely Rob questions. And Rob is back.
I told you the power is blinking, but it came back. My network came back.
I don't think anyone's happier to see you than me and people that have questions that I can't answer. Hey, Rob, we've got about 15 minutes left. So let's finish this question, maybe do 5 more minutes of content, and then we can finish up with the rest of the questions.
All right, sounds good. So sorry about that. Yeah, it's super windy, blustery here in New Hampshire, and apparently my power just took a little dive. All right, so hopefully that answered that question. So the reason why I like having the full terabyte is that way I don't have to worry about managing that 20 gigabytes of space so much. So if I come up to my all photographs here, right? So I could see I've got almost 12,000 images here. If I click on this little filter icon, there's an option here called sync status. And I'm going to choose synced and backed up. That tells me that the full resolution photo exists in the cloud and the photo has synced and is available across all my devices. And so this little icon here tells me synced and backed up. And so if I click on that little info panel here, and zoom in so you can see it down here. All right. So in the cloud is an original. Locally, there's a Smart Preview for working here, but in the cloud is the original. But because it's synced, I know, because of that workflow, the full resolution photo here also had downloaded and exist on my computer too. And so by using them both, number one, it creates an automatic workflow for me to get any photo I take with my phone to my computer inside my Lightroom Classic catalog. Number two, it allows me to take any photo I've taken over the lifetime of my photography in Lightroom Classic, put them in a collection, sync that collection, and have it available across all my devices. I also use it, so if you go to robsilva.com, that is an Adobe portfolio site. Adobe Portfolio integrates nicely with Lightroom photographs, so I can easily pull photographs that are already in Lightroom right into my Adobe Portfolio. Super versatile types of things. Now, another way of using this that I think is really important, aside from that, is if you take pictures and you want to be able to share an album out with someone. I'll do it with this one just for sake of time here. Inside of this now synced album, I can click on this Make Public button. What that allows for me to do is send a link via email or text or however I want to send it to someone else who could then view this entire album in their web browser. That's kind of cool. It also allows that person who's viewing it, if they log in with an Adobe ID, they can actually comment and like the photos that are included within that album. And so the way that I do that, I'll look down here under this. So if I do a session for senior portraits, kind of a common thing I'll do, and I'll create an album and send that album to the family and have them take a look at the images. I give them an Adobe ID and password that I created, because Adobe IDs are free to create, only needs an email address. That way, most people I know family-wise may not have one. I could just send them this. I say, here's the link to your gallery, log in with this Adobe ID and password, and then go through it and just click the heart button on any photos you want. So if I click on this adobe.ly URL that gets created, this is what they see. They get this whole album that they can then go through on their computer. They could even use their arrow keys on their computer to go through them. And any photos that they like, they can click on the little heart. If they want, they can also leave a comment. And there's no comments on this, but anything that they add is automatically synced back to me in Lightroom Classic. So I can automatically see what photos they like. That tells me which ones to put into my finals to go through and finish editing. And so it just opens up all new workflows with everything being stored in the cloud. And because these were shot with my Nikon D850, imported into Lightroom Classic, and then synced to the cloud, all these raw photos never took up any of my cloud storage. And so it becomes a super powerful way to extend your workflow across all your devices and give you ultimate control over what is where at any point in time. Kathy, any other questions before I show something else related to that?
We have probably 7 or so minutes worth of questions. So you've got maybe 5 minutes to present, and then that'll give us time to finish up.
Okay, we'll just wrap. Okay, great. All right, so here I am in Lightroom for web, as it gets called sometimes. And because this is a web browser, for me to see changes here, I have to refresh my browser. And so when I refresh the browser, then I can see any changes that I made. Another way to tap in there. And so there's that dog walk album that I created. And I can come in here. I can also manage it from my browser, right? I can send it over to my Adobe portfolio. There's all kinds of great things I can do in here. I can get in and kind of change the appearance. It's incredibly powerful. I don't have time to show you all these things, but check out those links in that PDF. So I'll put up on the screen here again, lightroomers.com/adobe/Lightroom Classic and lightroom.pdf. Very, very powerful workflow. While you're in the web version of this, I want to just point out there's also this discover and learn section. And so if you're new to the Lightroom mobile side of things, and especially the editing side of things, you can go through the discover and learn section and see little tutorials that were created by other people. And some of them were created by Adobe, and some of them were created by just photographers you may have heard of. And these are available within all of the Lightroom apps, not inside of Lightroom Classic. That's the only one that's not available inside of. But all the editing that we do to sync photos, whether you do that editing inside of the Lightroom mobile app or inside of Lightroom Classic, is also synced across in whichever device you might start at. So if I come over to my dog pictures here, and I'm in the Lightroom app for Mac here, and I'll just go to my presets here, and I'll just apply a preset to give it kind of an obvious look so that we can see that some edits were made to it. And so I just applied this preset. And so those edits will sync across and be available across all my other Lightroom apps, right? So if I come back over in here, this is my web browser, and I can have to refresh it, right? And so there is that edited photo. Now, within here, it even tells me what app it was taken with, which is kind of cool. I can also edit inside of here. So I'm in my web browser right now on lightroom.adobe.com. And I even have access to synced presets. All right, so I can say maybe I like the black border instead of a white border. Right, and so all of the editing that I'm doing gets updated and synced across all devices, whatever file type you're working with. And these are just smart previews. These aren't even the full res photos that are available to me here. And so if I switch back over, say, to my phone and come back into the Lightroom app, there's my album, right? And then once it updates my edits, the edits are still syncing across, they'll exist in there too. A couple other things that's really cool, actually. Kind of a side benefit of using the Lightroom app is that you have access to the Adobe Synthesize search. It's a little bit easier to show on my desktop here. So if I come over to my all photographs, now this is giving me access to almost 12,000 images that are up there. I can search all of these. Now, if I'm just going to type in the word dog, because we know I've got some dog photos, and I'll hit enter. And so it's going through my entire library of images and finding photos that it thinks have a dog in it. I did not keyword these as such. It's using the Adobe Sensei magical AI algorithm to go through there and find images that it thinks match that criteria. Just type in the color blue. All right. Now that we have the sky replacement feature, all these skies are going to come in handy in Photoshop. So putting your images into the cloud is they automatically are getting analyzed for their contents. If the photos have GPS information, that information is also available. If those photos maybe were imported from, there's a procedure for migrating an entire Lightroom Classic catalog to the cloud that would bring over things like keywords. Now, a couple points before I just wrap up. There are a few things that don't sync across from Lightroom Classic to the Lightroom Cloud. One of those things is keywords. So if you do any keywording in Lightroom Classic, it only lives in Lightroom Classic. If you do any keywording in the Lightroom mobile apps, it only exists in that Lightroom mobile ecosystem. It does not sync across. Just one of those things. Color labels don't sync, but edits do, and flags do. Flags, pick flags, reject flags, and star ratings also sync across. So another way that I'll use this is, so here's pictures of Glacier National Park. While I'm out in the field traveling, I'll import images into maybe my phone or my iPad, if I have that with me, into the Lightroom app. Then they're automatically uploaded to the cloud, back up, that's cool. I can start editing if I want, that's cool. I can go through and do my picks and my selects and star ratings, and then all that information, including all the photos, will download automatically into Lightroom Classic. And then any changes I make from that point forward get synced across all of my devices. So come back into here to Lightroom Classic, and hopefully you got a sense of what's possible here. The other thing is, I was going to show you this, but I'm just going to kind of go through just the very beginning. This is what it's like to import into the Lightroom family of apps from using like the camera connection kit. So this is just an SD card. There's also one for taking a card reader. You plug it into your device and you're able to import directly from the card into the cloud. Doesn't have to go through your camera roll anymore. And you can even choose to add the photos to an album as part of that process, just like you would if you were importing into any of the other Lightroom apps from a local connection. And so here I'm bringing in all these photos from a Nikon D850. These are full res NEF files. And once I tap on import, the full res photos will start uploading into the cloud and begin this whole process. And then once they're in the cloud, I'll just zoom ahead. So this is a screen recording I did because of them being connected. I can go through here and I can do all of that flag rating and deciding on what I want to have to make my picks. I can check focus because the full res photos are available. And I can reject if it's not focused like that, and just keep swiping on through. So having that ability to extend that workflow to whatever device you have is a really, really powerful way to go. All right, let me just pull this up so you can see that. All right, Kathy, a couple minutes left here. Just any other questions I have before I get shut off?
Yeah, we have 3 minutes, so this is going to be rapid fire. Can you very quickly show two things? One, you've synced classic photos to your phone, how you could show the photo to someone, how you could share it to someone, and how you could maybe upload it to social media.
Sure. All right, so here I am on my phone, and these are those photos that I had just synced over from Lightroom Classic. All right, and so here's that photo. It's been edited, it's got the preset applied. Let's say I want to share it. I tap on the share icon, which is this guy up here at the top. And now I can export it to my camera roll, if that's one way to do it. Or if I wanted to share it out to a different app, say I wanted to put it on Facebook. Now I can choose where I want it to go. Say I wanted to send it to Instagram or send it off in a text message or wherever I wanted to do. Basically, you tap on the share icon, go to share to, and then choose your destination for where you want that to go. Then there's just the old-fashioned, hey, look at my phone, and you can hold it up to someone that's standing in front of you. Now, I also showed that ability to get the share and invite that creates a link. So here's that link to this album, and I could share out the link to this entire album to somebody too. I could text that to someone, I could put that on social media, I could email it, however I wanted that to go. Once the photos are synced, you have all these different ways of sharing that out with anyone that you want, via any means you have available to you. Hopefully I answered your question.
Good. This is going to be the last question. You've got exactly 1 minute. If you edit a smart preview, do the edits transfer to your full res photo?
Correct. Yes. Yep. The smart preview is just the vehicle from which the edits go from app to app. Now, obviously, if you zoom into 100% and you're on a smart preview, you won't be able to zoom into the same pixel depth because you don't have that many pixels, but you can still do all the editing that you want to do in whatever app. And remember, inside of any Lightroom app, any edits you do are only saved as a set of instructions that gets applied via some form of output. And in this case, since we're staying within the Lightroom realm of apps, those set of instructions, that's all that's getting transferred. All right, whatever you move the exposure slider to +1, that's just a set of instructions that gets sent over to all the other apps. That's what makes this thing go so fast, because it's not editing the photo and then sending an edited photo all across. It's just sending the instructions all the way across.
Awesome. Well, that concludes our time. It is 10:30, and I'm sure the Emerald people want to keep us on schedule. A couple final housekeeping notes. I'll put in the chat panel one more time the link to Rob's incredible material, his PDF with links to everything you could ever want to know about Lightroom. Number one. Number two, this session is available on demand, clicking on the very same link that got you here this morning. So if you want to go back and watch parts of it again and dig deeper, that's the way to do it. And finally, Adobe has great sessions throughout November and actually for the next 9 months, 8 months. And on the Adobe page, you can see the list of sessions. This afternoon at 3:30 Eastern Time, we have Pei Catron, a photographer and now an Adobe employee, doing a walkthrough of actually how to do anything you could ever want to do on your mobile phone using the Lightroom app. So I hope to see you guys all later in the week. And thank you all for coming. And thank you, Rob, for a great presentation. You're the master.
Sorry, I got kicked off.
But I'm glad you're back. May you keep